Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today, and do I have an upload for you. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely are appreciated and matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into it, shall we? Today's upload is very interesting. A gentleman had listened to a couple of different uploads that I've shared. One being a experience in the Canadian Rockies, and that's what made him reach out to me. Also, a experience that I shared just recently in Alaska, and we'll comment on that a little bit later. That was another reason why he wanted to reach out. So back in 2005, a gentleman who worked for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service had an experience in Lake Chandler, Alaska. And we'll get to that really quick. But he shared some information with me that really blew my mind. There is a man-made island in Canada, northern Canada. It's Rene Levasseur, and it's a man-made island created by two rivers that formed a lake. Apparently, there is a underground military installation that is jointly operated by the Canadian and United States government, but also with the alien agenda. And they are doing a lot of genetic mutations up there, a lot of what occurred at Nightmare Hall. I've been sharing a lot about that as of late. I've been talking about William Cooper, Dulce, Phil Schneider, and such. And that's another reason why he reached out. Because on this island, Rene Levasseur, this base is situated almost dead center. Population in this island is like 92 on a good day. And the United States government and the Canadian government have been experimenting with alien agenda, the draconian, the gray, with these creatures. I will call them creatures because to me that's what they are. They are demonic. I truly believe that that's what these aliens are demons. And he commented and he said, yeah, you know, they have been creating multiple humanoids with multiple arms, legs, some having multiple heads. And I kind of commented and made a joke about that kind of spoofed movie. Not the Human Centipede, but the one where they turn that guy into the walrus. And he said, I don't know that movie, but what they are doing there mirrors what they did in Nightmare Hall. And that specific base is dedicated just to genetic mutations, genetic experimentations. He said that a lot of these Canadian disappearances, a lot of the missing people, mainly women and children, are brought to that location, that installation. And the government has been using, apparently, dogmen as guards for this base. He said that there has been times that the area on that island is almost overrun with these creatures that are chipped going to this location to keep it secure. Once again, this guy has worked for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. He did show me his credentials, and he wanted to share that with me because I've talked extensively about Nightmare Hall, and there's not a lot of information out there on Nightmare Hall. I really wish that there was, and the information that you may be able to find is limited, unless it came from like Cooper, Schneider, Costello, and a few others. I would say the rest would probably be like in that lines of creepypasta, fan fiction, whatever you want to call it. But what he said was going on there was just atrocities against humanity. He had clearance to go to certain points in that facility. He said it's about 14 levels. He has only been to 4, but on the last level he was able to go to is where he saw these multiple limbed humanoids. Like they were a human at one point, and they came out of these vats that whatever is in them, whatever it may be, alien blood, it may be some kind of substance foreign to this earth, but whatever they came out of, and these things resemble, you can see that it was a human at one point, but the humanity is gone out of it. It is more or less now a monster. He said that when he saw, what he saw was it had 6 limbs. So a set of legs and 2 sets of arms with 2 heads. One head being that of a child, the other head being that of a woman, of middle-aged, a middle-aged woman. And the eyes were jet black on both of these heads on this creature. There was no kind of any humanity. It was a monster. It had no compassion. It had nothing. It was almost a mindless kind of killing machine. I had said, well, what about the creatures or mutations? I can't even call them creatures because it's not their fault. What about the mutated stories of the women that had been kidnapped that are just now turned into like almost like a cow, a milking cow. He was not able to, he didn't see any of that, but he imagines that, judging from what he saw, that the depravity of what is going on there could very well be even worse than what happened in Nightmare Hall. He doesn't know much about Dulce because obviously he is Canadian. But what he has heard about our deep underground military bases that have a draconian, gray, alien agenda is very similar to what is up there. There were 3 or 4 different kind of aliens that he saw up there. And I'll get into that in a second about what I wanted to say. But demonic kind of looking things like the draconian and the grays. But he said there was shorter grays that were maybe 4 feet in height. And then these really very tall, almost 7 to 8 foot tall grays. Nearly as tall as the draconians, the largest draconians, which shocked me because I'm thinking that these, ever since I started reading about the draconians and this and that, I always thought that they were almost equal in strength, size, height, intelligence to the Nordics. But yet there's a gray type that is taller, obviously skinnier. So in this island called Rene Levasseur, there's a military base, a Canadian, United States, Canadian, and alien base there. And what he believes to be somewhere ranging from 14 to 16 stories deep. Created, and the crazy thing about the island is a perfect circle. It is a perfect circle just sitting in this man-made lake created by 2 rivers. That's about as much information as he shared with that on that subject, but I wanted to share that with you because I thought that was really interesting. He's got some files that on what he had participated in as being Canadian security intelligence that he's going to try and get to me. But let's get into his experience that he had in Lake Chandler, Alaska, back in 2005. So back in 2005, being that he is a Canadian citizen, he does work. Obviously, he has security clearances. He knows people in our government. He was able to go on a hunt, caribou hunting in Alaska. They landed, it was mid-August. Caribou season starts in like August till September. And they landed at the Chandler Airport right on Lake Chandler in Alaska. They had brought those canvas kind of lodge tents with them, a portable log stove and such. They were about 5 of them together and a guide that was meeting them up there. So 5 plus 1. And they were responsible to bring their supplies, their lodging, their, whatever they needed, they were responsible for. So they had everything with them. They landed at the airport, which is just a random strip of just a patch next to the lake. So they get everything loaded out and they drive to where they're going to have to trek in. They do have a kind of razor. It's not a razor. It was like a John Deere kind of 6x6 or whatever the hell they are, to carry in some of their stuff. That could only make it a portion of the way of where they were going to camp. And then they'd trek back. They make treks in. So they're about 10 miles away, 10 miles deep in the brush or bush of Alaska, on the almost opposite side of the lake from where the airport is. And everything is going smoothly. They get everything set up. They're talking about the hunt. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. Yada, yada. They're getting familiar with their guide. Apparently, one or two of the guys that they were with had been up here hunting and knew the guide fairly well. So the first night was to just set up, meet, and, get established. Next day comes and they kind of scout out the area. They had a few, obviously Alaska is very strict with their hunting tags and such. So they wanted to make the best of what they could with their tags. The first day, they scout out some areas and they don't split off. So all six are kind of walking together quietly and such. About midday, they do spot some caribou. They spotted a few moose. Nothing of their means yet, nothing to their eye. And it wasn't going to be a hunt day. It was more or less, let's scout out, let's see what we've got, and then we'll figure out, you go here, you go there, and we will hunt. So on their way back to their camp, one of the guys that also works in the Canadian Security Intelligence, or worked in that CSIS, kind of started to get this weird vibe. Like he felt like something was watching them. And he told the gentleman that contacted me, and they kind of blew it off. Like, maybe the moose or maybe the caribou are scoping us out. This was his first hunt that he had ever been on. He had never been hunting prior to, and he was asked to go with everyone. So he didn't really know, the whole vibe of being out deep in, no man's land, practically. So they get back to camp and he starts telling, everyone else, and he talks to the guide about how he felt like, I think we were being watched. And one of the guys brings up Bigfoot as a joke. And the guide says, well, that's not a joke. There are Bigfoot, and they are in Alaska. I've never seen one in this region. I've seen other things. That's why it's important that, where we are and where I put you, you stay there so I know where you are. Don't, move from your location, keep your radios on, this and that. There are things out here that will kill you. And not just talking about bear or moose, but there are some other things out here. But don't joke about Bigfoot, because there are Bigfoot and they're not a joke. That kind of sets the mood for everybody, kind of like, what the fuck is this guy on? These are intelligent, deemed themselves intelligent, men. We work for, different services of the government. What are you talking about? Wood ape running around, this guy's crazy. Is he eating mushrooms somewhere? And that night they have their dinner. It's about 7:30, 8 o'clock. They're getting ready to go to bed to get a jump on the hunt the next morning. And they hear just this loud howl that lasted for almost 45 seconds to a minute long. It was just this deep, powerful howl that they knew that this was not a wolf. They could hear by the loudness and the length of time that whatever, even if it was a wolf, it had to be huge. Because it was just kind of an explosion of this howl. The guide actually looked spooked. He said, I remember looking at everybody as they're in this canvas kind of lodge tent. And I'm looking at everybody. We've got, 2 or 3 lanterns going. The log stove's going for cooking and a little bit of heat because it's a little chilly. And thinking, why is he freaked out? He's been here, hunts here, guides here. This is kind of weird. And he notices that the guide kind of checks his pistol and, checks make sure it's loaded and puts it back. And he's just like, that's really strange. No one asked any questions though. So, cause they all thought, well, maybe it's just a big, Alaskan timber wolf. And maybe apparently they're not afraid of humans. So that's why. So they go to bed. There is, a little bit of apprehension, but once that really loud howl ends, they don't hear it again. And it sounded, far off in the distance, to not be that worried. Once again, he doesn't know Jack because this is his first time being, hunting. Practically, his few times being camping at that. He's not a wilderness kind of guy. So they get up in the morning and they get ready to go hunting. They get dressed, have a quick breakfast, and they go out. And the guide, once again, kind of warns them, hey, I said it last night. I'm being honest with you. There are things out here that can hurt you. Stay where I set you. Set up where I set you. And regardless of anything, I will come back and bring you to camp. Keep your radios on and just, don't do anything dumb. If you need me, radio, and I will come to you. No other person. So there is no deviation from where you stay. I put Jim here, I put Bill here, and I put John there. John doesn't come looking for Jim if anything goes wrong. I will come and help Jim. Agreed. Okay. So he sets everybody up, and they hunt there. That's their spot. They're waiting for, caribou, moose. And beautiful day, and he doesn't see anything. He's nerved, though, from that howl. He remembered that owl all night and all day. And so he'd hear like twigs snapping and, a bird land, and he kind of, freak out a little bit. So that day goes by fine. The second day that they're out there, is good. No one got anything. They go back to camp, and they have their dinner. They talk about, hey, the guide says, we're going to do this different now. We're going to go on this way. And, I got a different spot that I want you to try, and we'll see how this goes. We're going to trek it out a little further out. So we'll probably leave a little earlier than, today, and we'll see how this goes. They don't hear anything that second night. That's technically their third night there, but the second day hunting. Next morning they wake up and they get ready for their hunt. As they are walking out of their lodge, they notice this just real bad odor, and it's coming with the wind. It's, kind of blowing in at them. And they kind of look around for something dead. And they both are kind of looking at the guide. Now, the two Canadian security servicemen are good friends. So they're, together looking at everything and trying to figure out what the hell this smell is. The guide is kind of apprehensive a little bit. He's kind of standoffish, looking around a little, and more so than the day before. It was almost like he didn't want to go out, but he's getting paid. So they start trekking out. And he again says, almost paraphrasing it, do what I tell you to do. Do not deviate, yada, yada. And as they are walking through this section of woods, they come to a very shallow, kind of swampy area. It is moving, but it's not moving quick. It's not stagnant, but it's pretty stationary. And they see these paw prints. And one of the guys immediately comments and goes, "Holy shit, bear, look at the bear prints." And because they are a large size print, he said somewhere between 8 to 10 inches across. Just a wide kind of print. And the guide says, "Nah, that's not a bear print. That's something else. Let's get out of here, and we'll follow, where we're going to go." So now they're talking amongst themselves as the guide's leading the way. Like, what the hell did he mean? That's something else. You think is that how big these timber wolves are? Like a print like that, how big are these freaking timber wolves up here? And that's what he's thinking. He's like, what, these things get 200 pounds? Are these, the size of a large mastiff or what? And they get to where they're going to be and they start hunting. You know, he sets everybody up and he pairs them off. He said, all right, you're going to be here. You're going to be here. And I know we talked about what we were going to do last night, but because of the prints out there and, you know, the animal that came from, I'm going to pair you guys off and we'll check in on each other once every hour. I'll radio in to you and this and that. So now there's 3 pair. The guide with one guy and the other 2 and the 2 Canadian security forces there. So they're sitting there and they're talking amongst themselves like, you know, was that, you know, they're convinced that these timber wolves up there are the size of a bear. They hear a rifle report and then they hear another one and then they hear another one. They hear a total of 6 shots and they're kind of like, shit, someone got something. Should we go? Let's radio in, you know, to see if we can help. I want to get something, you know, the excitement is there. As they are talking and they're like, you know, let's radio in and see if anyone needs our help, you know, to drag this thing in or gut it or whatever. The guide radios to everyone and just says, listen, I need you guys to come to our location. This is, you know, where we are going to be. I'm going to give you the coordinates. Just follow everything that I told you to be and told you where, you know, I've marked the area where they're going to be. That's why they went scouting. That's why they scouted the area out so they kind of would know where to go. They start their trek and they hear another 2 more reports, 2 more shots, almost consecutive. But they could tell that it wasn't, these 2 didn't come from the same rifle. So it was 1 shot, different rifle, another shot, different rifle. And as they radio in this time, they're like, we are close. We can hear you. Are you, you know, what's going on? The guide says, you know, let me know, you know, XYZ where you are so I can meet you. We got to get back to camp. They kind of sit, okay, we are here. We are, you know, we're where you told us to be. We're trying to find you. We haven't seen the other group. The other group radios in. We're about a half a mile from you. What should we do? And then the guide says, all right, start walking kind of in a V pattern to meet. We'll all meet at a point. About 15 minutes goes by and the guide and the guy that he was with are not there, but the other paired off group meet up with the 2 Canadian guys. And they're like, what the hell is going on? You know, do you think they got a bear? Do you think they got a moose? Do they need our help dragging it? Why are they having us come? Why is he having us come to them? What is going on? As they're talking amongst themselves, they hear a bunch of racket coming from the woods ahead of them. And they're kind of like, what the hell is that? They all at one point kind of pull up their rifles and take aim. And the guide is now running. They can make out that it's the guide running full bore towards them. And he stops. They immediately, the second they realize it's the guide, they, put their rifles down. But they're like, where's the other guy that, you were hunting with? What's going on? And they can see that he's just shook by something. He said, we have to get out of here. Yeah, we got to get to a radio that can actually get a call out to Fairbanks or wherever, because, our radios that we have don't have that power. We got to get back to camp. And they're like, where's our friend? Where's the guy that we came in with? And he just says, he got attacked. We need to go. We need to go now. So, they're kind of confused, because this is everything that this guide said not to do. And he's going against what he said, I will come to you. Now he's having them come to him, and we will all leave together. So at this point, they are kind of questioning the guide. Like, why are we doing everything that you told us not to do? One of the guys that's in the other group, in that group of two, had, obviously these 5 guys have kind of bonded. The only 2 that knew each other were the 2 guys from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. The other 3 didn't know anyone from Jack, but on their flight in camp, at camp talking, the one guy says, listen, I'm a Marine. We don't leave men behind, and we most certainly don't leave another Marine behind. And the guy that you had with you is a Marine. They're obviously Marines. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. They're not active duty, but that mentality, where is the guy that you were with? I'm not leaving him behind. Where is he? Let's go get him now. As they're, addressing the guide, they're really kind of questioning his authority now. Like, get us out of here, but where's our buddy? They hear a report, and they look at the guide, and they say, he's still alive. You said that he was attacked. Why would you leave him behind? And they kind of all look at the guide and say, bring us to where you were so we can get this guy out of here. We're not leaving him. He just fired a round. He either fired it to one, let us know that he's still alive and let us know where he is, or there is something still there. And what the hell is attacking this guy? Is it a bear? What is it? At that point, they get the guide to go back, and they start walking. The guide then looks at everyone and says, in the next couple of minutes, we're going to be to where we were. I don't know if whatever attacked us is still there, but I'm going to tell you right now that everyone be ready to shoot. And if he is dead or if he is alive, either or, he's going to be in bad shape. I told you that there are things out here that kind of are equivalent to Bigfoot and possibly even nastier. What is out here right now is very similar to a werewolf, a rougarou. He didn't say Dogman. He just said, there are monsters out here. And the guide's got the radio. So the guy that they're looking for doesn't have a radio. So the Marine yells something like whatever, kind of a Marine yell. And once again, the guy that's in the Canadian Security Intelligence is, he's not a Marine. He never was. So he doesn't know what was said, but he just knows that it sounded like something like a sound off. And he hears the response. He gets a response like seconds. And it's not far. And, once again, that Marine looks at the guide like, kind of shakes his head. And at one point, he thought that the guide was not coming out because that's how pissed off the Marine was that he left. One, another hunter, but two, a Marine out there just took off running. They get out into this small clearing and they see the guy lying there. He's against a tree. His leg is bleeding and it looks like he'd gotten mauled. His upper portion is good. There's no blood on his face, his chest. It's just his one leg looks like it had just like been put in a wood chipper. They go up to him and they're now like, we can't leave him. He's going to die. If we leave him, he may die on the way out, but we're not leaving him. They tie off his leg above where the main wounds are, and they're getting ready to, drag him out of there. They're, making do with what they have. They tied off his leg with a shirt, and now they're, so they make kind of like this makeshift carry thing for the guy. They get him loaded up on that, and he's got his leg elevated. So his head is, his legs are elevated. They're trying to keep him from bleeding out. And they're walking. They don't see anything. They're talking to the guy, but he's talking kind of gibberish. He's not making sense. He's not saying like, I saw the Dogman. He's just not coherent there. They start walking and they're about 2 miles into their hike. So they've got at least another hour to their camp. And they hear just this smash kind of coming through the woods off to their side. And the guy who had gotten mauled just starts losing it. He had shot kind of his rifle. He's, everyone has their rifle. He's got his rifle and he shoots kind of like behind, and they stop and they're like, what the hell, bud? Take his rifle. They don't want to get shot, but they're like, what the hell is that noise? The Marine that is now went back for the other Marine there, he's now kind of in charge. And he looks at the guide and says, what is hunting us? What is out there? How do we stop this? Are we going to get out? Is it going to come after us? Is it because it smells his blood? We got to kill this thing. The guide just says, I've only seen once before, and it had taken down a moose. Just one had taken down a full-grown moose, which he, made it seem impossible. They hear another kind of smash through the trees, and they kind of stop and start looking around. It's not throwing stuff. It's almost like it's purposely making these noises. They keep walking. They pick up pace a little. Each time they stop to check on the guy who had gotten mauled, there's this just kind of smash through the trees and then silence, almost to like let everyone know, hey, I'm still with you. It's not like it's throwing a rock or throwing sticks. It's just almost like it's just pushing into trees to kind of creep these guys out or freak these guys out. So they get about nearly to camp. They stop their last kind of stop to check on his leg to make sure that he's still alive. And right as they make their stop, they automatically now expect to hear that crashing sound. But they don't. And they're already turned, because they've heard that crash 3 or 4 times now. So they're already turned, and their rifles are raised at where they anticipate that crash to come from. As they get ready to do that, they see something off to their peripheral, and it kind of shoots by them through the woods. So they're looking and they see it and they turn, and that's the way they got to go to camp. So this thing is now heading toward their camp before them. But keep in mind, once they get to their camp, they still got to get out towards, they still got to get into that 6x6. They got another whatever hour walk to the 6x6, and then a good drive to get to where the airport would be, to where base camp or where the guides setup is. So they're not even close to being out of the woods. And that dawns on them at this point as they see they see this kind of streak of brown running past them. That really, they're like, we've got a long way to go. You need to start leveling with us. And what are we going to do to get the hell out of here? The guide is just like, the only thing I can ever say, I've only seen once it take down a full-grown bull moose. All I know is that I've heard stories from, the native Alaskan tribes that they've been killed, they can die. So the best thing I can say is when and if it comes to attack us, that we all shoot it. So they get to their camp and they check his leg. They don't see anything. They, did a quick perimeter search with their eyes just to make sure. One at a time goes into the camp to get whatever and to get more first aid for his leg. They do another tie on his leg, another, real tight tourniquet now because they have rope. And he thinks that they used, actually, he commented on this. This was the interesting thing. He said, I think what saved his life was yes, we did tie it off, but when we got back to camp, we used a bungee cord. And that bungee cord, it cut off so much blood circulation to his lower leg that he did lose his leg, but he didn't bleed to death. He said, I don't know if he would have lost his leg if we hadn't used that bungee cord, or if it was because of the bungee cord being so tight. You know, he would have died if they didn't, but you know, that stuck with him a lot, because he's like, did this guy lose his leg because of us and the tourniquet we made with this bungee cord? Because it was so tight, it was practically cutting into his skin, but it stopped him from bleeding out. So they now have better, equipment to make a better kind of sled thing to tow him out. What they did was they took a cot and kind of snapped the top part of the cot off, put him on that, and secured him. And one guy on one side, one guy on the other, 4 guys on that, and we're getting him out of here. The guide's going to lead the way out. If we run into this creature, by the time we get to that 6x6, we'll put him down and we'll attack and address that situation. But as for right now, the guide is the lead. So they start hiking out, and at this point they got another 45 minutes to get to, where that 6x6 is parked. And they get to it. No sign of this creature that's stalking them. No out of the peripheral, no crashing. They get to the 6x6. They get him loaded in the back. Everything, all their equipment's left behind. So they got him in the back. Everyone is loaded up and they're driving out, and they've got a ride in front of them. Well, they didn't see anything on the way out, walking out, but they did when they got in that 6x6, and I'm probably about a half an hour into their drive. They're driving, and this thing is standing dead set in the middle of this trail, this whatever road trail. And what they see is this just dark brown, almost black, but they can tell that it's brown from the sun and how the sun is hitting its fur. Large canine creature. Its tail is, almost touching the ground, hocked legs. Its arms and feet, or arms and paws, are almost, to its knees, and it's hunched, and it's almost expecting them to come. It's staring them dead on, like face to face. Hey, I'm right here. You got one place to go, and that's through me. And its head is enormous. He said that was the one thing that when they first saw it, was the body of this thing is huge, but the head was just almost unbelievably just. And he said, I don't know if it was because of its, how its face was and how its teeth structure was, but it seemed like its head was just so much bigger than its body, but it wasn't. But that's how it seemed because of its teeth and its claws down by its side. They stopped, and the one Marine that is tending to his fellow Marine, they all peek up and look, and they all immediately just start shooting. He doesn't know if the guide shot. They kind of lost a lot of respect for the guide. He said, I don't know if the guide shot at all. He goes, I heard just a lot of, shots coming. They were shooting bolt action, but a serious rounds. So, what a magazine and a bolt action, or a bolt action, 5 rounds each. So they said they shot about, 10 rounds into this thing. It did try to move, avoid getting shot, because it was charging at them. The first shot that was made, it actually started to run at them, and the thing drops. Now, the Marine that had tended to his fellow Marine jumps out of the back of the John Deere thing, 6x6, and he goes over to look at this thing, the Dogman, and at that point, when he's out of the 6x6, the guide actually engages the drive, almost like he's going to drive away from and leave this guy here with, like, he's still in, freak out mode. They grab the guide and immediately, what the are you doing? Stop. Don't, you're not running shit anymore, pal. And the Marine looks at this thing and says, what in the hell is this? Is this what you saw? What is this? This is a wolf, but it was just standing on 2 legs in front of us. Is it going to change into, they actually were questioning the guide. Is this going to change into a human? Did we just shoot a human? Was this, because they had never heard of Dogman. It's 2005, but these are men that were never into the paranormal. They never, they made a random joke about Bigfoot in the woods. These guys are not, so they're thinking Hollywood, this is going to be, Pat from fucking Chandler that is a werewolf. And he said, that thing's not going to change. It's not a human. Get in here. We got to go. There may be more. There may be 2 more, 1 more. We got to go. We have got to get out of here. It's dead. Let's go. They get to the guide's kind of cabin / office. They board, they get everything set, and they get the pilot ready. The pilot had been camped, he had stayed at this cabin, waiting for the return. And they get in the plane and they fly out to Fairbanks. So they land in Elson Air Force Base, and from there they already had radioed in. The pilot had already radioed in, we got a injured man, get an ambulance out there waiting, bring him to Fairbanks Memorial, and we will then, figure out what happened, what's going on. They forced the guide to go because at one point the one Marine wanted to have him arrested for endangerment. Yet there were disclosure papers filled, like, you're going on, I am not responsible for you if a bear attacks you or if you get trampled by a moose. So there's no legalities of that.
arrest. He wasn't arrested, but they were then all brought to Fort Wainwright, where they had met with a few people from Homeland Security, and they were separated. So he had never seen anyone other than the person he knew prior to in the Canadian Security Intelligence. He didn't see the Marine ever. He didn't see the guy who had gotten hurt. He didn't see the guide after. But they were questioned about what they had seen and what had happened, this, and that. Shortly thereafter is when he had gotten security clearance for the Rene Levasseur military base. That's when his clearance after this attack, this hunt happened, is when he started to move up in the line, progressing in the Security Intelligence Service. He was, told never to talk about this and never to, address anything other than. He is now out of the CSIS, and he will never enter America ever again. That's why he is comfortable sharing. But this was probably the most unbelievable thing that ever happened to him at that point, up until he was at the Rene Levasseur. And from what he told me in that files that he has, I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. He said that when he saw that six-legged humanoid that he knew was a human, not some kind of alien creature, but he knew it was some sort of, mutation created by his government, our government, and this alien agenda. But when he saw it, he said the fear, the apprehension was 10 times worse than seeing that Dogman. And that, my friends, is absolutely a crime against humanity. So that was his experience. He said within the next couple of days to expect more information about the Rene Levasseur military base there, the deep underground military base. He's done. He'd been, out of the Security Intelligence Service for a while now. But that hunt was something that he never thought would. It changed his life in more than one way. It changed his life now knowing that these creatures are out there, but it also set him on a career path that he never knew was going to be possible. He was going to see things that he never knew existed. He said it essentially was a mental burden, but a career and financial gain having that experience and being who he was when he got addressed by Homeland Security.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd really like to thank you all for supporting this channel It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we all deserve, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.